This video is sponsored by Manscaped. Sens fans, I know I'm gonna start off by talking about you first. I know your team is actually playing right now. The prospect game against the Canadiens is going on as I'm recording this audio and as this video is going to be uploaded. But that's not the only piece of news there, Sens fans. Guess what? Logan Brown signed too. That was kind of unexpected, but that is not the topic of this video over here, so this video is going over a different piece of news. Let's talk today about the three biggest RFAs that are currently in the market and currently unsigned. They are Brady Tkachuk of the Ottawa Senators, Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks, and you have the last one, Kirill Kaprizov, Minnesota Wild. What we're talking about here is three separate updates going on about these three players, and as a result, it kind of combines into a nice little package over here. I know there are indeed other big pieces of news. Quinn Hughes still needs to sign, but he is not offer sheet eligible, therefore he is a lot less interesting. You have yourselves the signings of Chara and Yamamoto. That's actually pretty cool to talk about too, but today's video is talking about the other guys who have not done anything yet. Without further ado, let's go over onto the first one right here. Let's talk about Brady Tkachuk of the Ottawa Senators, because we had ourselves what was an interview done with Matthew Tkachuk for the 32 podcast, my goodness, 31 thoughts plus one, so 32 Thoughts podcast. I'm going to need to get used to saying that, aren't I? Because that's the show that Friedman and Merrick do. They did this at the NHL's Media Day, and as a result, we had ourselves a big microphone where NHL players went out there, they said their piece, and they had their little conversations over there. Matthew Tkachuk had himself some really interesting comments about his brother Brady, who's suiting up for the Ottawa Senators and who does need a contract at the moment. What we're going to be doing is going over onto NHLTradeTalk.com. Look at this. This is the article right here. Matthew Tkachuk says that Brady is prepared to hold out, as well as that him and the Senators are currently not close. The article, NHLTradeTalk.com, by the way, I'll leave a link in the description as well to the 31 Thoughts podcast episode, says that Matthew Tkachuk shed some light onto the Brady negotiations with the Senators, and it is not good for Senators fans. Tkachuk was not the bearer of good news for Senators fans as he sat down with the host of the 31 Thoughts podcast, should say 32 Thoughts podcast, I think, saying that I'm in the mix. I'm always there. It's a family business, these negotiations are. Nobody wants to deal with the Tkachuks in this, but we do it by committee. Now, before we actually get any further, you have to remember that Keith Tkachuk, the father, was never really the easiest to negotiate with contracts. You have yourselves also Matthew, who held out a little bit too when he was signing his extension with the Flames, and now, of course, you have Brady, who is in a position where, he hasn't had a contract yet. He's still in St. Louis, apparently, from the last word that we heard, so things are getting a little bit odd. There was also a tweet included in this post right here where Matthew Tkachuk says there is a lot of fake stuff out there regarding this contract negotiation. They're not too close, so hopefully it gets figured out. And yeah, there is a lot of stuff going about when it comes to the Brady Tkachuk negotiations that actually are a little bit more positive. We had ourselves Gord Miller, who was saying that he believes an 8x8 deal is close to signing soon, and it's just a matter of time. Matthew Tkachuk said this: he might be pulling a classic Tkachuk right now, my brother might be. Dad held, I held, and Brady looks like he's on his way right now. So hopefully it can get figured out here. But it's just a lot of fake stuff out there regarding this. They're not too close, so hopefully it gets figured out, but who knows? My dad and I are definitely involved. Brady needs us to help him out with that stuff. He wasn't as cutthroat as we were during it, but he's starting to become more of a Tkachuk the later this goes. And that is not fun at all if you're a Sens fan looking for Brady Tkachuk to sign either a long-term, team-friendly kind of deal or to just sign in general, because the Tkachuk reputation over the past decade and a bit, actually, has been that the Tkachuks are tough to negotiate contracts with. And Keith is kind of the guy that went out there and had that overall disposition instilled within his contract negotiations throughout his NHL career. So having Keith and Matthew, two guys who are super hard-nosed when it comes to contract negotiations, helping Brady out, definitely does not seem like a fun time for the Ottawa Senators management. He is a great player, Brady is, and he deserves to get everything he should, Matthews said, noting that he is the most important part of their team and the captain. There's a price the Sens should have to pay to retain his services, and the family is making sure that Brady Tkachuk knows that. Ooh, that's rough. Now, before we go over onto the next player over here, Kirill Kaprizov, a big word from the sponsor of today's video. Attention, gamblers of all shapes and sizes. Our friends at Manscaped have a can't-miss bet for you today. The leaders in male grooming have just launched their 4th-generation performance package. The betting odds are in your favor when you use the Lawnmower 4.0 on your family jewels. Are you ready to take the leap to male grooming royalty? 2 million men already have. Join the Manscaped movement by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code LEGOROCKS. If you want my personal recommendation, the Performance Package 4.0 is the ultimate parlay to take your grooming experience to the next level. It includes the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents, plus a 4000K LED spotlight. Did I mention it's waterproof too? The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker, their very own nose and ear hair trimmer, as well as their ball deodorant and toner. It also comes with boxers and a travel bag. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code LEGOROCKS at manscaped.com. That is the code LEGOROCKS at manscaped.com today. Now, on to the second update for today's video. Let's talk about Kirill Kaprizov, because the updates coming from the media have not been particularly great either. This is what Bill Guerin said in an interview earlier this week, that progress with Kaprizov has been pretty slow, despite the fact that the Wild have gone out there and apparently given him a pretty good offer. Now, this kind of thing does not sound great, because the holdouts, they've been extended a little bit longer. You have yourselves what is now a status where, with the Minnesota Wild players setting to officially report to camp next Wednesday, and on ice sessions to begin a week from today, which was 2 days ago, September 16th, so we're waiting until the 23rd. Even if Kirill Kaprizov signs at this point, he won't, at a minimum, be in camp on time due to work visa obligations plus the 7-day quarantine. In fact, it's not even all sunshines and rainbows here from Michael Russo anyway. He had himself an appearance on the Worst Seats podcast earlier today, and this is what some of the quotes read. Here's a post from the Minnesota Wild Hockey subreddit where it talks about it. Listening to the Worst Seats in the House podcast, and Russo makes a great point. This is Kaprizov's 3rd agent, and he has been a pain for over 5 years. If something sounds like a rat and acts like a rat, you can't blame it on your 3rd agent. Now, all the Minnesota Wild fans in this comment section are kind of going out there talking about the idea of Kaprizov eventually leaving, somehow, some way, finding himself off the team in regards to a trade or free agency or money, just all that kind of stuff. It's not looking all too great for Kirill Kaprizov. However, Russo did have himself a little bit of an update after this podcast was published. One possible piece of good news since the pod: I believe the Wild and Kaprizov's camp have at least been talking again in the past few days. We'll see if they can hammer this thing out now that Kaprizov will miss the start of camp, which opens on Wednesday. It's Saturday right now. We'll give it a few more days. We'll see where we go from here. Now, the last update in this video is a lot more nicer, I guess, than the other two. It's not particularly great, but it is not bad. Let's talk about Vancouver Canucks center Elias Pettersson, because guess what? He is now in Vancouver. We had ourselves the insiders going out there saying, yeah, we're getting word that Petey is now here. Guess what? It has officially been confirmed. Petey posted on his Instagram story that he is crossing the bridge, heading over to downtown Van City, so he is here. Even though he doesn't have a contract, he is here, and that in itself is a pretty strange thing, considering the fact that you don't usually see these guys actually head over to their cities until something is set in stone. Brady is in St. Louis, Kirill Kaprizov is in Russia right now, so hey, Vancouver fans, getting Elias Pettersson over here certainly is not a bad piece of news. We also had ourselves word from Jim Benning, but he said to Ian McIntyre yesterday as well. We have a good relationship, Benning told Sportsnet, about him and Pat Brisson. There's no angry sides. We're just trying to work through it to figure out how to make everybody happy. We're in constant communication with Pat Brisson and his group. The communication is good, and we're just trying to figure out how to get some common ground from their perspective and our perspective. They're important players in the future of our team and our group, but these are complicated deals. We talk every day or every other day. We've got a week before main camp starts, so we have time to get it done and get these guys in camp. Quick reminder that, hey, Pat Brisson represents not only Pettersson, but Hughes as well, so having the negotiations going on with both of these guys from the same agency certainly makes things a little bit easier because you can just have simultaneous conversations. Hey, we're finished talking about Petey, let's talk about Hughes next, you don't need to make another phone call or whatever. But Elias Pettersson, the way things have gone down, we're still seeing some numbers floating around like what it could be. Same with Tkachuk and Kaprizov as well, but just this overall update is a little bit more negative in terms of the Tkachuk and Kaprizov things. Pettersson, there's no real negative feel right here. There's just a little bit of overarching unease, I guess, that has started to transcend over the Vancouver Canucks fan base that has been very vocal on social media. But either way, these three guys are still out here. They're still unsigned. Some of them are in their city. Some of them are not. Some of them are a little bit more positive in terms of the updates than others. So talk to me in the comments what you think about Matthew Tkachuk and his comments about Brady and the tough holdout process that might actually start out, Kirill Kaprizov and how he is going to miss training camp should he sign immediately, as well as how the Minnesota Wild just haven't gotten it done yet, and the Vancouver Canucks and Elias Pettersson, how apparently there's no beef between his party and Jim Benning, nor is there really any conflict. They're just kind of working things out. Talk to me in the comments what you think. I hope you enjoyed this Rolls 99. And bye.